Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Tanya Sadowski. I am the program coordinator for the global engagement team here at the Community Solution Education System, and I am so thrilled to have you all join us today for our final event of this wonderful International Education Week 2023. Before I turn it over to our esteemed speakers today, I am going to just share with you all of the events that we have had going on this week. Even if you have not been able to join us for all of these events, you aren't here today, but all of these events will be available on our YouTube channel and will be going out in our newsletter on Monday. So you can watch the videos of anything that you haven't been able to participate in this week. As a recap, what we have done this week, on Monday, we had our international liaisons from Germany, South Africa, and Canada, along with students and faculty, talk about their study abroad experiences that they've had. On Tuesday, we had a student from India and a student from Pakistan sharing their advice on how to build their professional network and career development as an international student. On Wednesday, we heard from our esteemed colleague, Dr. Emma Grace from the Chicago School, about the incredible international psychology programs that are offered through that school and all of the opportunities that are within that program. Thursday, we had an incredible information session on the Education Beyond Borders Vancouver, Canada program that is taking place next spring. I strongly encourage you all to check that one out. It's going to be an incredible experience for anybody who is interested in traveling to Vancouver and learning about the culture there and the nuanced differences between the United States and Canada, and seeing what you can do with that experience moving forward in your careers. And then today we are joined by another one of our esteemed colleagues from the Chicago School, Dr. Felice Mayes, and two of her undergraduate students, as they talk about their study abroad and international education experiences. And then, as a reminder, we do have a photo contest. It will be ending tomorrow on Saturday, since the week will be over, but you can definitely submit your photos. We have incredible photos that have already been submitted. Even if you don't have photos to submit, you are welcome to look at what is there and vote. The winner gets a prize, but please check out all of the videos of the many travels around the world that everyone has taken. So please feel free to upload those videos. I will put the link to that in the chat so you can click on it and see where people have traveled and what they have submitted. On that note, I'm going to now turn it over to our very esteemed colleague, Dr. Felice Mayes. Dr. Mayes?
All right. Thank you so much for the introduction. I appreciate it. And it sounds like you had a lot of exciting presentations this week. I definitely want to go back and check out some of them, but especially the Vancouver one. I think that may be something I'm interested in doing as I'm an alumni of the Chicago School, as well as current faculty. So, well, just to introduce our presentation, the title, The Journey to Intercultural Competency Through Study Abroad. My name is Dr. Felice Mayes, and I'm one of the core faculty in the BA Psychology program here at the Chicago School. I have two students with me, Siham and Lana. I'd like them to go ahead and introduce themselves and just share a little bit about them so you know who they are and why they're here.
Hi, my name is Lynn Shipman, and I'm a part of, as I can see, as I'm sure you can see with the logo, the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, and I'm earning my BA in General Psychology with the online program. At this moment, I am in Montana, and I'm working towards earning a Ph.D. to become a researcher.
Hi, it's Siham. I am currently studying in the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. I'm doing the BA in Psychology program, online learning, and I'm hoping to become a clinical psychologist. And I live in Kuwait.
Thank you so much, Siham and Lana. We appreciate just sharing your perspective. And so Lana's in Montana, Siham's in Kuwait, and I'm in Texas, but at the moment I'm currently in Oklahoma picking up my son from college for Thanksgiving break. So we have some diverse perspectives to offer about our study abroad to Germany. So as a participant of this presentation, you will see and you'll hear about the narrative accounts of students' study abroad experiences to Germany when they went in December of 2022. You'll also have you'll hear varied viewpoints about the development of intercultural competency skill development. And then last, you're going to learn from the faculty perspective, myself, about some of the tools that were implemented inside the curriculum to help foster and cultivate intercultural competency. We have a short video to show you. It's only about maybe a minute or two. And it's basically just a compilation of some of our pictures we took on the study abroad trip to Germany. And then also it talks again about sort of the purpose behind the course as well.
I just wanted to make sure, can everybody hear what's going on?
I can't hear it, so
No.
just wanted to, okay.
Yeah. Tell me now.
College of Undergraduate Studies at the Chicago School. In addition
Anything?
We can,
yes,
Yeah, okay, perfect.
to teaching and advising here at the Chicago School, I also focus on study abroad opportunities for undergraduate students. In 2022, we embarked on a brand new project, taking 8 students to Berlin, Germany for the first time. This was an exciting time for students to connect with peers, faculty, and other cultural partners as we studied different themes of how culture and psychology come together. In that particular course, we focused on how the theme of power and oppression is evident in society and how it impacts marginalized populations. We also were able to work on cultural competency skills like cultural empathy, cultural humility, and cultural sensitivity.
All right, thank you. I think the only thing that people missed at the first part was just a little music, but they saw the pictures, so it's fine. And on the next slide, so one thing about this course in particular is that rather than just focusing on another culture and learning about another culture, which is a very important aspect of study abroad, we really built this course with the foundation of intercultural competency. So it wasn't just about learning about another culture, it was learning about yourself as well, and then how those two interact and how they come together. And so 3 of the quotes here, they just really sum up sort of the underlying grounding and framework of this course. So unconsciously, we bring our own cultural frame of interpretation to any situation. It's our own cognitive bias that we have, that we bring in, and a lot of times we're not even aware of it. And so just bringing that awareness to the students, and also for myself too, as I interact all the time in different circumstances, I think it's pretty important. And a lot of you guys have probably learned about Hofstede and the work that he's done. It's just a neat concept. Also, the textbook we used was called Psychology and Culture by Vaughan. A couple of the quotes here. The examination of psychology within a cultural framework allows for a better understanding of the complex intersections of people and society. So again, it's not just learning about a psychological construct, but it's looking at it with that frame of cultural relativity and looking within that framework and then that perspective. And then lastly, the process of socialization occurs not in a vacuum, but in a larger sociocultural context. And so this was important as we looked at some of the history of the United States, as well as the history of Germany, and looking at how and why some things occurred in different sociopolitical and cultural contexts. All right, and we'll go on to the next slide. So just to give you a brief overview of really how the course was developed, the themes, what we looked at was power and oppression over time and how that impacts marginalized populations. We did a kind of cross-cultural examination of Germany and the United States. And then the other big component within the course was the cultural competency development. This was integrated each week in different ways, and I'll go over that in just a minute. The curriculum design was intentional to have critical reflections with student debriefs, whether it was a class meeting or individual meetings, obviously cultural immersion while in Germany, and then viewing cultural sites ahead of time inside the online course, but then also in person as well. The tools implemented include the IDI, which is the Intercultural Development Inventory. Back in, I want to say 2019, I was able to receive an internationalization grant from TCS Education, the Community Solution Education System. And it allowed me to take the training to become a facilitator for the IDI. So it was a pretty neat opportunity that later when I developed this course, I was able to implement this tool inside for the students. And so later, once they had the results, they were able to develop their intercultural development plan, which basically takes them from where they see themselves now and where they want to be. And the overall learning objective, while there were very specific student learning outcomes within the syllabus, the overall learning objective was to increase intercultural competency skill development through reflection of cultural empathy, cultural humility, and cultural awareness. And so as we go into the next slide, we'll look at the delivery. This is very common for a lot of the online courses at the Chicago School to be able to do a study abroad. So the first 7 weeks are, in a synchronous and non-synchronous environment online. And then the last week, the 8th week, is the in-country experience. And so within that online environment, again, we talked about the IDI that we did. Some of that included doing an individual reflection meeting with me where we went over the results of the IDI, dyad cultural interview with a classmate where they each had to ask each other about their own culture. And so they got to practice kind of sharing about their own culture. And then the IDP where they got to set their own goals for where they wanted to be based on the results of the IDI. The discussion boards were on topics of socializing agents, pluralism, cultural awareness, all the things that are great to build inside a study abroad. We had readings, videos, and cultural websites of the places that we would attend ahead of time so students could start to acclimate themselves, get familiar. There was a reflective journal so that they had the privacy and the space to be able to reflect on some of the things that were coming up for them throughout the course, but also in country as well. And then they had the opportunity to watch the film, The Lives of Others, and do a written assignment about that, which directly correlated to one of the cultural sites we visited while in country. And so we really tried to do a, varied and unique ways to bring these concepts and themes to students, but also an engaging format. There was obviously a pre-departure and safety meeting that was done here, and that's done for all of the study abroad programs. But that was a great thing too, just to get the students prepared and ready, not only to talk about the physical exertion on the study abroad, but the emotional impact it can have, and just to really prepare students for that. And then in country, some of the sites that we visited were the university that I mentioned earlier, I think about Torsten, that he presented on Monday. And he's one of the cultural liaisons for TCS Education System. So he's in Berlin, Germany, and he took us to SRH, where we were able to hear some presentations, but also give presentations there. We went to the Stasi Prison Memorial Site, the Topography of Terror exhibit and workshop, which is basically a workshop and site that was built to really understand the Nazi regime and how it developed over time, some of the ideology, and it was right next to the Berlin Wall as well. So I think that's one of the great things that Germany has done, is been able to make such wonderful educational sites throughout history. It's not something that they bury or put away. It's on display to learn from. So it's just one of the very neat things about Germany in particular. We also went to one of the concentration camps. It was about 2 hours away from Berlin. We tried to lighten the mood too, because some of the topics were so heavy. So we tried to do some other things like go to the Germany Christmas markets in the museum. Since we were going, we went in December, it was really neat. So it was very active. You know, we were right there, right in the heart of it. It was very cold as well. And then we went to some other museums like the Jewish Museum and Berlin Global as well. And then the students were able to do a group presentation that was a social media campaign for future students going on a study abroad to Germany about how to practice their intercultural competency skills. And so on the next slide, you'll see a few pictures of where we went. Some of these are the concentration camp, some of the memorial sites. You can see the Christmas market picture. One funny thing is the picture of the bear with the group of us. There are these bears all over Germany. And so it ended up being a contest between some of the students and myself to see who could spot the bears first. And so we took pictures with all of these Berlin bears all over Berlin when they traveled different places. Right. So just to give you a little information about the IDI, the Intercultural Development Inventory, this is a tool that basically assists an individual going from a monocultural mindset to an intercultural mindset. And as you look upon this continuum, you'll see, it starts with denial, goes to polarization, minimization, acceptance, and then adaptation. And the idea is that we want to move towards adaptation and that, to go along this continuum. And the idea too is that we never really fully arrive. It's always a growth mindset. So it's not something that you necessarily will ever fully get there, but the idea is to work towards that. And so with this IDI, we implemented this the first week of the course. So the students were able to take it, get the results, find out where on this continuum they landed with their answers. And then with that plan I told you about, they get to choose kind of where they want to go next and what are the steps and how to get there. And so this just tells you a little bit about the IDI. And I'll go into on the next slide a little bit more about specifically minimization. Minimization is the middle area of that continuum. And so most students at the start of the course started in that minimization orientation. And to be fully transparent, when I took this course to become a facilitator myself, I took the IDI and just to give you a little background, I was a little surprised by my results because I also landed in minimization. And so, I have my Ph.D. in international psychology. I've been a counselor for over 20 years, and I thought for sure I would be a little further on the spectrum. But I think it was a very humbling experience, but also I was able to share this with the students in a way to see that we're always growing and we're always learning. And so just to share a little bit about this minimization, may not be fully aware of how one's ideas and behaviors are culturally grounded. So really it's that self-reflection piece. And you'll hear that as the students speak a little bit too. Some of the positives of this, because there are some positives as well, recognizes the essential humanity of every person and tries to act in tolerant ways. So the intention is good. I think one of the biggest pieces is tends to assume people from other cultures are basically like us and applies one's own cultural views to other cultures in ways that minimizes the importance of cultural differences. So sometimes there can be almost a overcompensation of we're all people, we're all the same, we're all humans. But when we do that, sometimes we lose the beauty in seeing some of the differences in cultures as well. So it's just part of that journey to getting to that intercultural mindset. And so just to let you guys know, as a group, this wasn't a research study, so this is just looking at it from a program review. The class did move up on the continuum further on from minimization, but I'm not going to go into all the details of the results because, it's only 8 students in the class and I don't want to divulge, their personal information. And so if we'll go on to the next slide. So in August of 2023, we had 7 of our 8 students present at the APA convention, basically on their study abroad experience. So they were able to present with Division 2, which is the teaching of psychology, Dr. Brandy Blunt, who's the division chair for the BA psychology program, and then 7 of our 8 students came to present, as well as myself. And so it was a really neat opportunity. Not a lot of undergraduate students get accepted to present at an APA convention. So it was a neat moment for us as, as a university, but as a program, and definitely for our students as well, to be able to start that on their resume and CV for the future. Some of the perspectives were the reflections of self-awareness from a student that was BIPOC, a journey from culture shock to cultural sensitivity, looking at the conscious choice in cultural interactions. Also, one student shared her immigrant perspective, and then another student shared about those cross-cultural perspectives on communication. And so these were the perspectives of students that are not here today, but the two students that are here today, we'd like to hear from them next. And that's really the most important part of this presentation. Now that we've given you the layout, the framework, the grounding of kind of why we got to where we got, now you get to hear from them about intercultural competency development. And so the very first question, I'm going to go ahead and start with Lana on this one. How did your journey towards intercultural competency evolve throughout the study abroad program?
So for me, it took a while to actually notice how it evolved. In fact, I had to go through my notes of the program. And it started with how I went into the class. I had this belief that I developed as a child when interacting with other cultures that included the process of repeating everything that I learned about another culture. So I would copy the words to the exact letter and the accents. And I noticed that this could be easily seen as detrimental in intercultural competency as I began to learn more about what all of that entailed. For example, Dr. Lisa Vaughn, in our textbook in 2019, explains that sometimes other cultures can see this type of behavior as a caricature of their own culture, which is a rather negative view. So I started to observe in the program how other people behaved and how I behaved. And I saw that people who were most capable of having that skill in interacting with other people was their ability to take their own innate behaviors that they have from their culture, that's natural, and add in components of the other culture that flowed along and intertwined with their own culture to a ease in their ability to connect with this other culture. And after the program, I started to use this in a specific way. For example, I have a friend from Costa Rica who has the most beautiful ability, as she describes it, to communicate with her hands. And in my culture, that is not a natural tendency. We're very reserved in our hand gestures. And I noticed that I could not replicate the flamboyance of her hand gestures, but in interacting with her, I have developed the ability to learn to express myself more with my hands. So yeah, I think that's what the program gave me.
Thank you, Lana. Appreciate it. Siham, how about for you? How did your journey towards intercultural competency evolve through the study abroad program?
Oh, this journey, to be honest, has changed me. In the beginning, I had like a certain level of awareness about cultural differences, but it was like purely limited to what I have read or heard about in my own culture and from other cultures. But as I immersed myself in the study abroad and got to know more about different cultures, I sort of began to realize that my own biases sort of played a major role than I had initially thought. I even realized how biased I am towards my own culture, and I noticed that from the IDI. So being among people with different backgrounds kind of made me reflect on my own cultural biases. I even noticed how sometimes I stereotyped or misunderstood certain behaviors or traditions just because they were sort of unfamiliar to me. This realization initially was a bit very uncomfortable, but it sort of motivated me to learn more about my own cultural biases and how they influenced my perception of others. Something interesting, what I think is interesting, is I basically try to step back, like I pause when I don't know, and I become sensitive towards other cultural, towards other cultures. Something I was dreading, like especially in the study abroad, like being a person who's not very social. Interacting with international students allowed me to see the world through a different lens. I sort of started to appreciate the beauty of diversity, understanding that basically there is no one size fits all approach to life. I even developed this sensitivity by engaging in different conversations. Now, also cultural empathy was another thing that I have gained. I have become genuinely curious about understanding the experiences and emotions of people from diverse backgrounds. So this journey, to be honest, has made me more open-minded and culturally empathic person. And I take this journey along with me and continue to value and practice these skills in my daily life.
Thank you, Siham. Thank you so much for sharing. Aren't these students great? I love their willingness and their ability to really self-reflect. They were a great group on the study abroad trip. Question number 2, we'll start with Lana here. What was a recurring theme you noticed throughout the study abroad course and in the in-country experience in Germany?
So for me, it was acceptance of uncertainty. It started from the very beginning when I actually decided to engage with the program. I had never been on a plane before. So it required that I accept that there's going to be uncertainty in the activities that I was going to encounter. And I had to decide that I was going to walk in uncertainty by not knowing plane etiquette or understanding some of the culture, like everything about the cultures that I had layovers in. So that was definitely my first realization that uncertainty was going to be a part of every step in this program. And I noticed that it also applied with Vaughn in our textbook, where it described it as a natural process of interacting with people from different backgrounds. I saw it in Berlin, where one pivotal activity that we encountered was the walking through the grounds of the concentration camp. And the day before and during, I was nervous because I'm not one of those people that expresses strong emotion in public. And there was a lot of heavy topics that were going to be discussed in this place with so much pain. And I had to take a moment and think about how I was going to accept the uncertainty of how I was going to feel in these places. But I feel like the ability to do that allowed me to have a gift, because in that place, I was able to feel my emotions and focus on what I was encountering. So I was able to see the musicians who found a way to create new life into this concentration camp with their skill, and mothers who would take a torn coat from a soldier to hand stitch a knapsack for their child. And I don't think that I would have been able to see these stories if I hadn't been able to accept the uncertainty of how I was going to feel in the moment.
Thank you, Lana. I appreciate those details too. I can picture it, very rich. So thank you. And Siham, how about for you? What was a recurring theme you noticed throughout the study abroad course, but also in country in Germany?
So for me, it was the fear of the unknown. It's interesting to reflect on this because I only realized this after we have finished the program. So basically go with an open mind. Wherever you go, just go with an open mind. For instance, one of the things I planned is my self-care plan. I had expectations and preconceived notions about how certain things would go, but the reality was completely different. Now, for me, the fear of the unknown was sort of a lot because that not being familiar with the environment by the way, it was very cold, and that's not something I'm used to. And the emotions I experienced were very intense, and all this kind of led to this recurrent theme. It was a challenge to battle with this, to not know how to behave or react in certain situations, especially that I'm a very different person. Like those moments for me were very scary. Meeting people from different backgrounds and ethnicities kind of broadened my perspective and gave me a sense of belonging, something I truly didn't very much experience before in my own culture. So despite these initial fears, this experience has taught me to embrace this discomfort. It sort of forced me to confront my fears and adapt to whatever the unexpected was. In the end, it was a valuable lesson for resilience and personal growth. And it even showed me that I'm capable of handling the unknown and even finding strength and purpose in it.
Thank you, Siham. Thank you so much for that. And then question number 3, Lana, upon reflection, what was one thing you learned about yourself through study abroad? And what was one thing you did for self-care?
So I learned that I'm not as introverted as I thought I was. I was homeschooled, and then I went into a job that left me alone for extended periods of time. So it wasn't until this program happened that I was forced into a more social situation that I couldn't leave. And I found that I actually enjoyed it. So I had made pre-plans to grab breakfast in the mornings and run back to my room for safety or whatever. But I found that I enjoyed interacting with my the other classmates and the teachers and the directors. And I even found that it was one of the best moments to talk with the hotel staff, who were a wealth of information on German culture, and also helping me pronounce specific words in the German language. So yeah. And for self-care, I found that I did need that time alone. So at night I would go to my room early, and it allowed me to have that moment of self-care where I could reflect and decompress about the day's events. And I found it very necessary in how I needed to be away from the group just for a little while to think about how I was feeling away from them. So that's what I did for what I found out about myself and for self-care.
Thank you, Lana. I appreciate that. And then Siham, how about for you? What was one thing you learned about yourself and one thing you did for self-care?
So before I travel, I had a plan for what my self-care would look like, and that sort of helped me be in control, like aware of how I would want my days to pass by. Like I knew we had a certain schedule during the study abroad, and so I planned the rest of my time. And guess what? None of that happened. The program flow was the program flow was meant to happen like just the way it happened, and I had to learn to take each day as it comes by. So during the program, we had daily group reflections, like in order to process, refresh, and recharge. What's interesting there is that I happened to be myself. I truly did not have to reflect what I wanted to say out loud, but that 30 minutes of reflection sort of grounded me and made me sit with my feelings. As my usual instincts would be to run away, the program events were emotionally draining. It was better for me to sit with my feelings, even if I did not verbalize it. It also helped me listen to my classmates and how they felt, and know that I was not alone in the process. There was sort of no force for me to speak it out loud, but as some of us would like to isolate when they feel a lot of things and they do not know what to do with these feelings, I believe that we need the time at least just to be together when we're feeling all these heavy emotions. So to answer the question, I learned that I'm capable of way more than what I had initially thought. It was my very first experience where I get to go out of the Middle East and feel like I belong somewhere, like something is right. And the program helped me feel that. It helped me feel like there is more to the world that I yet did not explore. So I learned that I have the potential to explore that and learn about different environments and different cultures. And regarding my self-care, I think it is being open and sitting with the discomfort.
Thank you so much, Siham. And, you know, as a professor on this program, having your perspective and all the other students' perspective, it helped us as well. So, it wasn't just people from the United States, going to Germany and learning about that culture. It was also learning about what it was like for somebody from Kuwait to go to Germany and experience that culture. So we appreciate, everything you've offered and the perspective and all the observations. It was really insightful, So thank you so much for sharing that. And then our last question for our students is, in what ways did the study abroad experience influence your future work as a psychologist or researcher? So Lana, why don't you go first, and then we'll go to Siham.
Okay, so this one is very near and dear to my heart because I chose the program specifically because it was aligned with my values as a future researcher. I've noticed that some of the best research, it occurs when multiple perspectives have looked into a specific topic, and it can be used across cultures. And I found that this is especially important for me because I'm one of those people that I get very focused. So when I find something, I attend to it and everything else disappears. And I need to have people there who are going to pull me away and be like, oh, look at this. What about that? And it helps to be able to have the intercultural competency to connect and interact with people from different perspectives. And in fact, I have an amazing example. Just recently, a couple of weeks ago, I'm learning Spanish, and my teacher gave me the task of watching a TV series and coming back with the descriptive words for the characters that I watched. And when I came back, we were going to work on the Spanish words for it. Well, when I came back, I had very psychological terms like sensation seeking and loyal. But my teacher was hoping that I would have paid attention to what the people looked like. And I hadn't done that. So it took learning a language to realize there were areas in my visual world that I was not attending to. And I need that in my own research. So developing that competency to interact with people allows me to work with others to create research projects that expand across perspectives and also cultures. So that's beautiful to me.
Thank you so much, Lana. I appreciate that. And even, as going on this as an instructor, I also had some kind of moments that even though I've been on this trip before, I was able to observe a previous trip through the International Psychology program when Dr. Hughes took some students that were Ph.D. level students. I was able to observe that study abroad previously back in, I think, 2019. And so what I noticed, even though I had done it all before and was prepared and ready, I still had my moments of reflection and Torsten teasing me because I would take pictures when I wasn't supposed to and forgetting the privacy laws in Germany. And, my own culture would come in of, being from the South, and I would kept saying yes, sir, to him. And he kept correcting me, telling me to stop doing that. So it was just it's all the different ways that we notice and observe. We never really stop learning about how we interact, with the other and other cultures. But I think it's that adopting that cultural humility approach that both of you have done such a nice job with that really makes all the difference, because then you're able to navigate kind of what's next. Okay, well now what? So Siham, how about for you? What ways did the study abroad experience influence your future work as a psychologist?
So for me, this experience has a huge impact on my future as a psychologist, as the program was initially was very intense and emotionally heavy journey for me. This is what I will basically see in my therapy room almost on a daily basis. Now, there were moments for me where I couldn't handle the brutality of what humans can go through, and I had a breakdown. Now, I usually don't allow myself to process and feel, but this program has taught me that it's okay to sit and feel those heavy emotions. This course truly was very eye-opening, and it has left lasting impression on me. It taught me the importance of allowing myself to feel and process emotions, especially in difficult situations. It even helped me to be a human, not a person who has to always be successful, but a person who shows weakness and even powerlessness. I felt powerless in many situations. I was meant to react rather than control, and that by itself to me is something I never thought I would allow myself to show. That so-called weakness in front of others. And also I realized that as my future work as a psychologist, I need to be culturally sensitive with my clients. I must be willing to listen more than I interfere, ask questions when I don't understand, and even recognize the difference between intent and impact. What I say and do can have a significant impact on individuals, and I cannot at any point ignore that. So this experience has made me more empathic, patient, and understanding, which I think is very important for my future work as a psychologist. And I continue to take these lessons forward in my career.
Thank you so much, Siham. We really appreciate both you and Lana for just sharing your perspective. And, from the, program point of view, I think you can see why the debriefs are so important within the study abroad experience, because it just gives students the opportunity to process what's going on. And so I think that for me, one of the takeaways was, as an instructor, to be flexible, meaning that sometimes conversations would organically happen when we were, looking at marginalized populations and then reflecting back on the United States and what that looks like. Or different places around the world. And so I think that, just being able to be flexible enough to allow students to be able to process that, give them the time and the space that they need. And also kind of when you do the debrief is important too. If you do it right afterwards versus waiting several hours later to do it. And then I think also, as Siham mentioned, if a student doesn't want to speak, they don't have to speak. So they're not forced to, but they're given that opportunity to reflect. And then I think, one thing that the cultural liaisons do a really good job with here at TCS Education is that they try to balance the educational component with also some of the lighter side of seeing different cultures. And so, anyone who's developing a future study abroad, I would just encourage to have that balance, not only throughout the week, but throughout each day, so that the students and the instructors have some of that downtime and the fun time, as well as the learning time as well, that can be, quite heavy in, when we're looking at historical events. So thank you so much. On the next slide, we just want to see if the audience has any questions for our students or for myself, either way. So we'll go ahead and open it up for just a few minutes before we close out today. Okay, looks like Cynthia, who's actually one of our undergraduate students, came today. So she's one of my students in my Fundamentals of Psychology class. So Cynthia, what question do you have? You can either say it out loud or you can put it in the chat box, whatever is easier for you.
First, I want to say thank you so much, everyone. That was a really great presentation. I think something that I struggle with, which is a really big question for me, is like, how do you deal with the fear or like the anxiety of even making the choice to choose to, take the big leap to say, go to Germany, or like, how do you deal with those emotions alongside the excitement? Like,
that's a great question, Cynthia. I'm going to let Lana and Siham answer that from that student perspective.
So I suppose for me, I do a lot of research. Like I obsess, like I go down the rabbit hole. So from March until December, I was in YouTube, podcasts, all sorts of things, learning as much as I possibly could. And by the time my trip came around, I had friends and family worried about me, so they interrogated me and asked me if, you know, I was acting safe in my plans for traveling. And I was able to answer each and every one of their questions. So for me, that helped me not be frightened of taking that leap, because I was prepared.
Sian, how about you?
So for me, I remember I was really hesitant to travel, especially alone, to go to Germany. What I did was I researched, but apart from that, I contacted Dr. Mayes. I asked her about the program, and like I think I scheduled maybe 3 to 4 meetings just to make sure that I'm gonna be safe when I go there. And that's what I did, to be honest. And believing in yourself, believing that you got whatever it takes, you know, you have the strength to push through each day and go with whatever comes.
Thank you so much, Siham. And then I'd like, even though Bridget isn't necessarily part of the presentation, she is part of the study abroad program. She's over it here at the Chicago School. And so when you have students that ask you, Bridget, questions like this, what do you say to them at this point, typically?
I mean, I think what both Siham and Lana shared is great. Like the research and because I would encourage students to talk to the faculty who are leading the program, who would know a lot more about what that experience would be like and what that country is like, but also doing a lot of research like the students said that they've done. I think that that's great. And even just me talking through with them, like what that's like if you've never traveled outside your country and culture, and what culture shock can be like, and going through that experience. And, you know, because I think it's just good for students to hear from multiple people, including people like me who've done quite a bit of international travel and living abroad, and others like Dr. Mayes and other faculty who have done a lot of that as well, that it's always can be a bit intimidating, you know, even when you've done a lot of it. If you're going to a new country and a new culture, it can be a little bit scary. And if you don't speak the language, especially, that's a whole other barrier. So I think that that really helps. Sometimes too, connecting students interested in studying abroad with our international students that have come to the Chicago School campuses, because they have that experience firsthand of coming to a totally different culture and country, and what that is like for them, even though they are here for longer. It's longer than our short-term study abroad programs, but I still think that that can be a really good connection to make between students as well.
Thank you so much for letting us put you on the spot there.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Dr. Mayes, may I? Oh,
yes.
I was going to see if I could ask
Yes.
a question as well. First of all, thank you. This was a thrill to get to hear about such a thoughtful, comprehensive program, and especially from Lana and Sihan, from your experiences, all that you've learned, and how you were able to grow. My question is, since you've returned and following the course, how have you been able to bring those insights and your cultural competence and awareness into both your everyday lives, as well as your focus in being a student at our school?
So for me, I suppose it has helped me find places to learn more about different cultures. Before the program, I would have YouTube, or I'd talk to friends who were from a different culture, but I didn't know any other way to learn more. Whereas after the program, I have, like I said, I like to obsess and go into the study. And so for me, I found more resources, and that has been so helpful. Just knowing where to look is beyond helpful for me.
Thank you, Lana. We appreciate it. Any other questions at all? One thing I'd like to share, just to go back to what Cynthia had said, even though, I've had some opportunities to travel, when you asked that question, I reflected back when I was a student in the international psychology program. And it was back in 2015, and we were about to travel to Ghana. But this was right at the time when the Ebola outbreak was happening. And so we were getting daily reports. It was kind of like when you think about the pandemic and there's the daily death tolls coming on the news and everything. And it was very overwhelming. So at the time I called our department chair, who actually was Dr. Breda McGrath. At the time, she was the department chair of the International Psychology Program before she moved on into other program and dean positions and things like that. And I had a real heart-to-heart with her. I teared up and I was very nervous about it. I had a son. I was a single mom. I was worried about exposure and all these things. And she was just patient, calm with me, listened, talked through it and everything. In the end, the trip actually ended up going virtual because the school made the safety decision to not have students go to West Africa that particular year. And so I think one thing that gives ease too is to know that there's people even beyond your instructors at the institutional level that are looking at the safety plans of each country, each time with whatever's going on, whether it be in country or travel alerts or CDC guidelines, things like that. There's always a safety plan in place. And so I think that that's important to know to give you some comfort that they're going to make the right decision for students in terms of, is it safe for them to go or not? And so even though I was really disappointed when the trip got canceled, at the same time, there was relief knowing that I was going to be okay too. So, and then later I was able to go on a different field experience and experience Brazil and do research in Denmark and things like that. So I was able to kind of make up some time and ground there. Any other questions we have, either from the facilitators or other students? Right. Well, thank you so much. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just curious for the two of you, what's next? Like, have you thought about where else you might want to go, or do you have any plans for future international travel?
So for me, I was thinking of going to South Africa with Dr. Mayes, but I still haven't made up my mind yet.
Okay. So our next study abroad we're planning, if it gets approved, is in June of 2024 to South Africa. And so we're hoping that we will have at least 8 to 12 students to go on that trip. And again, we work with another liaison there, Kari Prince, who you heard earlier in the week, as one of the cultural liaisons as well from South Africa. And so, Lana, I know that you've talked a little bit about kind of some of the research you want to do. Does that include international?
Yeah, so I want to leave it open to the opportunities out there. In fact, I wanted to go on this study or this new study abroad program, but I decided that this next year I'm going to focus more on that and taking any opportunity that comes my way. So yeah, just learning more or developing more skills in research.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your perspective and sharing. I think our students did a great job. So thank you for that. If anyone who's watching this presentation later wants to get a copy of the syllabus, I'm happy to share that if that would help you at all. You can email me at fmays@thechicagoschool.edu. You're welcome to look me up in the Outlook calendar there and request a meeting as well if you want to talk about study abroad or kind of what we did or learn more about the IDI too. And so feel free to reach out if you have any further questions. We just want to say thank you for coming. And thank you for listening to our perspectives. This is a great honor to be here and to share this with you. So thank you.
And on behalf of the global engagement team here, I do want to thank all of you today. Truly incredible students, really, truly. And it sounds like an incredible program and experience that you all had. Thank you all so much for joining us today and wrapping up this incredible International Education Week here at the Community Solution Education System. That is all. Thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And for those of you in the United States, happy Thanksgiving next week. Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.